We're live, baby! YouTube, what the F is up, man? By God, is that Danger Garrett's music in the corner? Is that Jackson Garrett coming back to host the pod?
All right, all right.
Woo! Woo!
Who's all
Woo!
who
Let's
we got tonight?
go!
Me and Ben. Is we gonna see the rest of the guys or no?
Hey, Storman said he was going to come, so I'm going to give him a few minutes before you roll him, but we're live on YouTube, so talk to the
All
chat,
right,
Jax.
good, good. You know I had to do it to him. It's late. It's late here, but when you go to a Final Four, when you cut down nets, you got to come into your own pod. Exciting.
Can
Who
you believe it,
knows?
Jackson? I got bad news. We have a tariff. We have an embargo on you right now.
I
So you
heard
gotta you
that.
gotta stay you gotta stay in Europe until we bring home the banner, baby.
I heard that. I heard that. I wondered.
Also, there's a really big Florida podcast that reached out to us and said, "Hey, if you guys make the Final Four, we want to do a crossover preview episode."
Sure,
So
sure.
we'll cut a little Final Four
We can
content.
we can we can learn some from them for sure. How do we take Walter Clayton out of the game? Ask him that one. Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
I'm
that's
not
gonna be
looking
my
forward to
main thing,
playing them
man.
at all, but I'm celebrating tonight. I'm
I
not thinking too hard about it.
I thought I thought Texas Tech maybe had found a recipe to beat the Gators, but it turns out they hadn't. So
Crazy, man. This
I'm
box.
so I'm just ooh, I got to
I
give me
can't
one of those
believe the
Final Four hats.
silliness. I can't believe the silliness down the stretch, man. They were about to give me heartburn.
Listen, everybody was out of gas. That's just what it was.
We had three timeouts. I was like, why are we holding on to these? I wanted to take a timeout just to get their head straight for a minute there after like two sloppy possessions. And then we didn't even call the third timeout when we got trapped and couldn't get the ball out.
I
We went home with three timeouts. We can't take them to the next game.
I just found out my parents are going to the Final Four. So hooray!
Wow.
Well, I mean they don't have tickets to the game yet, but they apparently they're going to San Antonio. Good for them, man. Good for them. Must be nice.
I've been to
Must be nice to
Minneapolis.
vote
I went.
Republican and get all them tax breaks as rich people. Oh, we're live. I shouldn't say that.
Oh boy.
All right, I'm gonna blast this out. You know what? If the other guys jump in, they jump in, but I know it's late for you, so give me a second here and we'll get us started.
They outscored us in the second half just by hitting so many freaking threes in a row at the end there. That was killing me. It's so typical. I mean, it's frustrating on the other side too that your team finally starts hitting as soon as it doesn't matter anymore. But it's so frustrating to watch when it like when they're
I mean, look,
desperate,
man,
they
that's
go
why
in
that,
every
but
time.
that's why you build these massive leads because when you're in a one
Yeah.
possession game in March, this is the crap that freaking happens. But we're
Here's
not. We're gonna.
Thomas, Flex Machine. We did it, guys. Final four, baby. Final four. Two
Whew, all
times in the
right,
Bruce Pearl era. Insane. We've lived up to potential.
I got us blasted out. We got
Oh,
five people here in the live chat.
I should have put it in for Reddit here. I haven't done that all March Madness because I've been out.
Well, don't forget tonight's MVP is just a little obvious, just a little
Yeah, well,
obvious. Yeah, I
I
know.
like to give everybody a voice, you
Yeah.
know.
All right, you ready to go live?
Hold on,
Or
give me one
well,
second
not live.
here.
We'll record.
All right, all right.
Start the conversation with what this team has accomplished against the schedule. One of the best teams in college basketball history. 100%
Definitely,
flex. 100% flex.
definitely.
And flex, I don't know if you heard us talking in the beginning, if you got in here. We're going to do some Final Four preview content with another podcast. So we'll be talking about how incredible this run has been a lot. Because especially if it turns out that Broom is really hurt, um, I don't like our odds against Florida. I already don't like our odds against Florida. But the way he was protecting that elbow, it looked like they just kind of locked that thing up so it couldn't hyperextend again. And we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, this Auburn team, once it made the second weekend, had already etched its name in history, and now it's undeniable. This is the team that all other teams will be compared to for sure.
All right, I'm worried when you are, Ben.
All right, recording in three, two.
Your Auburn Tigers have just punched their ticket to the Final Four. They are currently cutting down nets the second time the Bruce Pearl era, the second time all time in Auburn history. I had to call in live from Europe to celebrate this one. It's late over here, but man, we just took down the Michigan Spartans 70-64, 6-point victory in the Elite Eight. Ben, how you feeling?
I'm feeling alive. Oh my goodness, Jackson. This team did not make it fun down the stretch, but boy, did they make the start of this game fun. We raced out. We never looked back. This had all of the drama that you could possibly want in a big time March game. It had all of the elements you needed for Janai Broom to clinch player of the year, at least in this podcast's opinion. And above all, it had Sir Charles.
We took this game from the start with a lot of energy. We came in hot with the energy. We were so worried. I heard you guys on the podcast over the last couple of games, especially that Alabama State podcast about how this team was coming in lackadaisical. The energy just wasn't there from when we were great earlier this year. But we brought it today. The defense was turned up. Neither team was shooting spectacularly great in the first half, but our defense was completely turned up, and that's what really mattered. We built a 10-point lead, and we kept that 10-point lead pretty much the entire game. I think we got it up to 14 at one point, and we kind of kept it there for a little bit until big part of the story. Janai Broom goes out with another injury. Everyone doubted him. Matt Donaldson is not on the podcast, so I'm gonna say he doubted him. He doubted him. I totally assumed he'd come back. I'm just kidding. You know, Matt was the other way around. Janai Broom has done this a couple times this year where you really think it's the season's over, the game's over, but not for Janai Broom. He extended his elbow, extended his ankle or leg there, went to the locker room saying he was done. He was done. He'd already had a great night at that point, 22 points, 12 rebounds, but he came back marching out like a movie, for goodness sakes, and ended up for the night with 25 points and 14 rebounds to lead the way for the Auburn Tigers.
Well, now hold on, Jackson. Before we get too much into the game breakdown, we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that this Auburn team just set the program standard for wins in a season. No Auburn basketball team has ever won this many games. Bruce Pearl is now one of a few active coaches that have made multiple Final Fours in the entire NCAA. We did it against the hardest schedule. We did it winning the most ranked wins in a non-conference ever. We did it winning the SEC regular season championship with a week to go. This team has done nothing but make history since they got on that plane to go to Houston the second time.
We've never seen a season like this, right? I mean, there's just so many things we've never seen like this. The domination we had early on, like you said, the extremely hard schedule, but it built to this spot. I've been saying for years I want that hard out of conference schedule. We couldn't get it. We just like teams would not put us on their schedule. We finally turned that corner this year and had this insane out of conference schedule at the same time that the SEC is the hardest conference it's ever been, and we won it with who should be the National Player of the Year, Janai Broom, and we're cutting down that to the Final Four. No matter what happens from here on, I think we are etched in history, like you said. I think we're built for it
And
now. I think we've seen some of these players are built for it, and they're built for it because we tested ourselves early. And here we are against Michigan State, and we've played so many other elite teams. Michigan State was really good tonight. You know, they're really good in general. A 2 seed. They started the year unranked and came all the way up to a 2 seed, won the Big Ten tournament. But here, or maybe Michigan actually won the Big Ten tournament. Either way, they still are number 2 seed, and we still beat them by what, 6 points, had them 10 points plus the entire time, and the next up, Florida in the Final Four. It's just gonna keep coming, but it's been coming all year long.
on the other side of that bracket, all there is Duke and Houston, two other teams that were already on our schedule. We played Duke in Cameron Indoor, but Jackson, we played Houston in the Houston Rockets arena, basically in the University of Houston's backyard, and handed the Houston Cougars their only regulation loss of the season. They have lost
Wow.
4 times this year. 3 times in overtime, and once in regulation, and that was to your Auburn Tigers and Tahad Pettiford's coming out party. Just
Speaking of playing in other teams like pseudo home arenas, tonight even the announcer early on said, "Is this Neville Arena in here?" Shout out to the Auburn fans in Atlanta. We all knew if we could get to Atlanta, the Auburn fans would show out. All night long, the Auburn fans were going ham in there. Every time we hit a shot, early on, the energy in that arena was insane. Like you said, it felt exactly like Neville Arena.
it was so loud. It was so beautiful. I loved everything about it. Those clap clap AUs for the free throws at the end, which we're going to talk about free throws when we get to the team stats. But hearing those chants in that gym on national television in a game that you know everybody else is watching, I don't care that some writer from the Midwest wrote that we are the least likable team. It doesn't matter. We're still dancing. We're going to San Antonio. We're cutting down nets.
People really don't like it when you're really good, I've noticed. It's so strange as Auburn fans. We felt it last year. Me and Ben, sadly, we're out at one of our favorite bars in New York. Shout out Standings. It's the best sports bar in all of New York. You know, even though we love the New York Auburn Club also at St. Pat's.
I think
But
I
we were
think if
there.
we win a natty, Standings might let me hang my Auburn banner in that roof, which that's what I want to do.
I'll reach out. I'll reach out to Gary. That's the owner. He's great. But we were there last year, and everyone was cheering against us because we were the 2 seed against a Cinderella Yale team. It's the same now. Like I think there's like people try to bring up like justified reasons not to like this team. The reason they don't like us is because we're too freaking good. We've been dominant all year. We're the bad guys because we've been dominant all year. They want to see the upsets. They want to see somebody else in. It's been a chalk year. All the number 1 seeds made to the Final Four. So of course people want the other team to win, but we got to deny that every single time. We've got people in the YouTube
Jackson, we
chat
denied
here.
it just like you said behind Superman. Go to the chat. What's the chat saying?
Shout out to Chris Thomas, Flex Machine, Jay Lowry, Gibbs. It's great having everybody in this chat to celebrate the Final Four. It's just unbelievable. I was there last time. I always told myself if we ever made the NCAA tournament, I would go. If we ever made the Final Four, there was nothing that could stop me from going. We made that first NCAA tournament. I was out of town. I was in a whole different place. I couldn't go. But when we hit that Final Four, that night, I was booking tickets. Guys, if you missed that last Final Four, we lost in the game I went to, but it was a blast to go to Minneapolis and watch that and hang out with a lot of other Auburn people. You get 2 great games. The Final Four games are played back to back in the same arena. The ticket you buy gets to watch 2 of them. So I got to watch Texas Tech, Michigan State, along with Auburn, Virginia. And even from the absolute worst tickets in the entire football arena where you need binoculars to see the basketball draw. You couldn't tell if it was Austin Wiley or Horace Spencer down there. That's how far away I was. I saw that double dribble from that far away. So that, buy your ticket, enjoy it, get out there, make sure that the Final Four, we were probably, sadly, the least amount of fans at that Final Four in Minneapolis. Not by a lot, but Virginia was already there. They'd already been expecting that kind of thing. Michigan State was probably the most fans there. Even Texas Tech probably had more fans than us. So this year, don't let that happen, Auburn. Get out there in San Antonio.
And Jackson, you just reminded me of a really good point. Tom Izzo is 8-2 in Elite Eight games. We just handed him his 3rd loss all time and denied him a chance to reach his 9th Final Four. Shout out everybody that wanted to come and correct us about not knowing how many Final Fours Tom Izzo had. This is not a Michigan State Spartans podcast. This is Auburn Tigers podcast. Tom Izzo was 10-0 against the SEC in March. He had never lost to a team from the Southeastern Conference in March. We just handed him his first loss in March. I can't even fathom just how much history this team has made, how much history they've defied. Jackson, you mentioned that in that Alabama State game, we talked about how little effort and energy the guys came out with, despite being the number 1 overall seed. And you didn't just hear it from me on our Twitter feed. You heard it from Bruce in the post-game press conference. You heard it from Dylan Cardwell, who it said had meetings with every player individually to talk about what this means to him. And Jackson, I know you want to talk about our Superman, but we have to start the MVP discussion with Dylan Cardwell. He has been
I did not see that coming.
Most dominant players in March not showing up in the stat column. And the reason that I think he deserves to be in the MVP conversation today, he finally hit a free throw.
Hey, if it was the most Christ-like award, the White Star, the Blue Best Effort Star, and upwards, it was going to Dylan Cardwell. But I don't know if I could do it. I know you wanted to get him for Creighton also. I see some MVP
well, look,
in the chat. Chris Thomas already gives it to Broom. Jay Lowry's giving it to Broom. I put the Reddit up one late, so I don't think anybody's got the Reddit one in. Sorry, Reddit guys, I haven't posting as much, but I've been out of the country, so it's been tough. But come on,
I
man.
mean,
I know we
Jackson,
love Cardwell. I'm so glad you gave
Jackson,
me a shout out.
listen,
What?
hang on. Before we move on, I just want to finish talking about the rebounding and what a huge difference it made with Dylan snatching 6 rebounds today. We lost the glass by 2, in part because of how out of sorts we were at the end of that game. But dominating the glass in the first half, we got up more shots than Michigan State did. We forced turnovers. Dylan Cardwell forced a ton of turnovers tonight, and he had 2 blocked shots, which were absolutely huge. So you're right. Let's give him that blue star for best effort. But Jackson, if we're going to give out our award for most Christ-like, it's got to be the player that came back from the dead. Janai Broom left this game with 22 points and 12 rebounds, and at the 10-minute mark with Auburn up 10, and we were all saying, we don't know if he's coming back. Doesn't matter. What matters is, can we hold on through this stretch? We kept the lead at 9. And then whose music do we hear coming out of the locker room but Janai Broom with a bulky elbow brace? And guess what? That elbow brace wasn't on his shooting arm, because all he does is come in and hit an FU 3-pointer in their face to stretch the lead to 12. And from that point on, you knew Matt's system or nothing. It doesn't matter.
Blew the freaking roof off, man. When he came out of that locker room just to come back, when they passed it over to him, I saw him sizing up. I said, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. This late in the game, we don't need the three. Bah! Splashes that thing. It was mind blowing. I was jumping out, jumping around the house, man. Finished with 25
If you
points,
if you are
14
on X
rebounds.
and don't if you're on X and you don't follow our guest host Shooty Hoops Will, he was in the arena, and you have to watch the video that he took of that
You got a
play.
video?
It
Oh,
is it is incredible, because like you could hear the intake of breath as Janai gets the ball right behind the arc and is unguarded. And everybody knows, it's like, yeah, yeah, shoot it. Because if that goes in, forget about it. We're unbeatable. We're untouchable. And we survived a crazy late onslaught of Michigan State going 5 for 7 from deep, it seemed like, to close out that game. And
we
there is no player that has been bigger all year on any team in this country than Janai Broom. His impact is undeniable on both ends of the floor. His ability to help us move the ball. He finally had 2 assists today. His assist game has probably been the one part of his game that's been lacking in March. And it just remarkable play from Janai Broom. And to come back and hit that shot in the biggest moment when you're not at 100%. What else can you say about the National Player of the Year?
Listen, Cooper Flag's getting all this national love from Reebok every 2 minutes on our commercials. How many commercials were this game? Holy crap, it was commercial.
Too
I
many.
think it was more commercials
Too
than
many.
basketball. But Cooper Flag was on half of those with the Reebok. He's in Gatorade commercials. ESPN's pumping him up because of the NBA draft. So you got to kind of manufacture some theatrics. We needed Broom to go out and come back in like Superman, like Batman, like we've been calling on the podcast all year long. Hopefully that, along with a stat line of 25 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block. Hopefully that helps put it over the edge. And on top of all that, he was so efficient tonight. We have seen him fill up the stat sheet before and look up and kind of feel like, but like it wasn't one of his most amazing games. 10 of 13 from the field, 2 of 2 from three, even 3 of 5 from the free throw line is pretty freaking good for Janai Broom. He was efficient as hell. They could not stop him. The only thing that could stop him was a bent elbow and a bent ankle, and even that didn't stop him. He came straight out of the locker room anyways.
Michigan State switched their lineup at the last minute and rotated their starting center into the lineup to try and get a little bit more size out there. Because when I looked at those starting lineups, their biggest guy was 6'9", and Izzo smartly realized, I got to put a bigger body out there just to try and do battle with Broom on the block, and it did not matter. Broom feasted early and often. He had another double-double in the first half to continue stretching his lead with the record for double-doubles in a single season as an Auburn basketball player. I believe he is now tied the record for double doubles in the March Madness tournament. I don't remember if that graphic showed that he needs to get one more to take the lead, or if that'll tie it. But either way, he's up there with the all timers for sure.
You know, usually we try to make an argument for some other guys as MVP, and luckily Ben tried his best to make a Dylan Cardwell argument to make this a little interesting. The only other guy that even scored double digits was Dahad Pettiford with 10, and he was 2
And
of 6 from three, 4 of 12 from the field. I mean, big shout out to Dahad. He had some amazing handles this game, some amazing passes, was very poised for the most part for a freshman out there.
zero turnovers.
0 turnovers. Wow, impressive. How about Denver Jones? How many turnovers he had?
Denver
Three
Jones was
turnovers,
credited
Denver, a
with
little
three, but some of
tougher.
those were guys dropping the passes for sure. If there's one other guy that had a massive impact on this game that we've been begging for so long, it's Chad Baker Mazara. Chad Baker
Oh,
Mazara led the way with 5 assists tonight. He was the machine feeding Janai Broom on those interior cuts. Jackson, you and I have talked so much about how often our guards get trapped in the double team and cannot get the ball out to the inside. Broom ran that slip screen, I think 3 times in a row, going right to the freaking cup. And they couldn't stop it because Chad is 6'7" and has the wingspan to get him the ball. Now, Chad
including
wasn't
one where
efficient.
Janai Broom came through there. It was that high press, and they were figuring out a way to break it through the middle with our centers going straight to the cup, which was amazing. And one time, Janai, near the end of the game, I think it was the last time we did this, went through 2 defenders, dunked it on, which we've not seen a ton this year. Janai, he lives below the rim or whatever. He threw it down between 2 defenders, no freaking foul call. This is what's so annoying. He never gets
Oh,
the whistle that everybody else gets, and then it never gets called because something like that, he threw it down. Of course, you just move on. You move on because it was an amazing dunk. That should have been a foul call. There's so many little moments like that where he finishes, and because he finishes, there's just not that whistle that anybody else would get, and it's so frustrating.
if Janai Broom gets officiated correctly, he drops 30 plus tonight for sure. So many and ones that they
It
just
took
let
to
it
what?
slide because
The
of how
like three
strong
or
he
four
is.
minute mark of the first half for us to finally get free throws. And the issue is it's because Janai Broom is feeding or feasting down there. So our guards don't have to drive out of control down there to pick up some of those like other teams do. If they just call Janai Broom fouls like they're supposed to, we would be okay in free throws. We wouldn't have to wait till the 3 minute mark in the first half to shoot one.
And, I thought that we were going to need the guards in this game because one of the ways that Michigan State has gotten beat is when other teams shoot the ball really well. We were only 7 of 25 from deep. We probably fell in love with the 3 ball a little bit too much,
I
but
feel like when
we
we needed
shot
them though, when
we
we
shot
needed them the
26 of
worst,
yeah, we
when we
shot
needed them the
26
worst, they
of
went down.
68 from the floor, and we finished with 16 assists on 26 made baskets to only 6 turnovers. If you follow us on Twitter, we talked about how Michigan State has a problem turning over the ball in losses. We won the turnover battle today, 9-6. We didn't quite get them to that double-digit mark that we would have wanted, but we didn't need to because we were being so efficient early.
The 3 pointers, every single one of them we hit, it felt like, but 7 of them were huge. We missed a lot of them. 25 shots, 7 made, but when we hit them, it was always at just the right moment. So like we just talked about the Janai Brew one that was huge. CBM hit a huge one. Miles Kelly was off tonight. Did he even get 1 of 6 for Miles Kelly? It just felt like every single time one went down, it was an explosion. There's other nights where it's just back and forth, 3-3-3. I think we saw in that Alabama game in Tuscaloosa. It was threes back to back to back, answering with a 3, them hitting a 3. Not tonight. Every 3 we hit tonight was like a haymaker. It was like 2 heavyweights there, and every single time it was a huge hook that put
Yeah,
us ahead by that extra bit.
and that's the thing is we spent so much of this game in a dogfight with Michigan State, swapping tough twos, swapping good defensive stands. I think both teams had a stretch of 5 minutes where they were held without a basket. And yeah, every time you hit one of those 3 pointers, it felt like gold because you knew the other team was going to have to work so hard just to get 2 on the other end. I
And how
mean,
many they ended up shooting 30%, 7 of 23. How many did they hit at the end? 3,
I
4?
think I think 4 in the
Just
in the
4
closing minutes for sure.
desperation threes. So they were terrible from 3. I mean, we were running them off the line like we've been doing all year. It's been our strategy all year. Run them off the line, let Janai Broom and Dylan Cardwell get down there and play some defense. But God, those desperation, it's like they shoot like 95% when it's desperate. Every single game you watch in college basketball, it feels like when the other team's down 10, 9, 8, 7, whatever near the end, and they start hitting these threes. It's like they're shooting an insane clip. But
Yeah.
frustrating to watch, but glad we did it. Let's finally crown the MVP here. We got to crown it so we can move on to these other players. We're already talking about all of them, but man, Janai Broom, I can't say enough about him. You're the jungle MVP. You deserve it. This is the kind of run these players make in March. This is the kind of storyline that makes us love college basketball. Janai Broom, you're the jungle MVP.
And it's just not even a question with how well he played. The fact that he came back and put his body out there on the line after an injury like that. It's just, you can't say enough about what he has meant to this team. He is the anchor. He is the leader. He is the alpha, as Matt is such a huge fan of saying. But, we've just got a team around him. I said this in our group chat when he went out. We're the Auburn Tigers. We're not the Auburn Brooms. And I am so impressed with how this team stepped up in his absence. He pulled Cheney and Dillon aside and says, "You have to finish this game." And Cheney Johnson came out with his hair on fire. I mean, he was playing that four position that we see Broom in when Cardwell's in there, getting the ball on the low block and backing guys in, turning around, finishing close. I wish he'd hit a few more of his free throws. We'll talk about free throws when we get into team stat breakdowns. But that was the Chaney Johnson that we needed. We needed it in a big way when Broom went out, and that was when he stepped up the most.
Cheney had these waves for sure. Cheney early in the game was getting out there and getting big rebounds, bringing a ton of energy. And I was really excited about it. I said, wow, where's this Cheney been the entire time? We don't need Cheney to get a bunch of shots in. We don't need Cheney to be a star. We just need him to get out there and do the hustle plays. He was finally doing the hustle plays to start the game. Then he had this absolutely terrible stretch where he committed some fouls, missed some rebounds, couldn't make a shot. And I was like, get him out of the game, honestly. He's a detriment to what we're doing out there. And then Janai goes out. He goes in there and backs his guy down and hits a tough two, gets some rebounds, hits some free throws. Cheney's so funny. It's been like this all year. Janai Broom goes out. I think last year too. Janai Broom goes out or somebody goes out and Cheney steps up. It's weird. He's like uncomfortable in the role he's in, or either he like overplays his fouls because he knows he's only going to play so many minutes. So he's going to play as hard as possible and pick up these fouls and all that. But as soon as someone's out and he's like back to being like cool-headed and knows he's going to play several minutes, he starts hitting a couple of these. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's what you hope for when you talk about the way that this team finished the regular season of can they turn it back on? And I thought they turned it back on against Creighton. Creighton was winning in the first half in part because they were shooting the lights out, not necessarily because of anything that was going on with our effort. And then the way that we locked them down, the way that we absolutely locked the Wolverines down in the last round. And then, I mean, we boomed Michigan State out of the gate. We did a 17-0 kill shot in the middle of that first half that forced Tom Izzo to call a timeout. I think it was 23-8 or something like that. It's just, you can see the killer mentality starting to show up in these guys. And that is what you are going to need to have in the Final Four.
I was looking down the players like who I want to talk to you about next, and we've touched on a lot of these guys already. But like honestly, it was such a Janai Broom dominant game. Like I'm looking over at the stats, and we also didn't have that amazing stats. 28% from three, 55% from the free throws. Come on, guys. Here's the big thing though: is defense and turnovers.
Yep.
We only committed 6 turnovers tonight and played great defense. So you can have a kind of mediocre offensive night when you're not turning the ball over. And when you're playing great defense. So points in the paint, 34-30. We didn't win fast breaks. Like, I don't know what other stat you see on here that we won
But see, this is
by a lot.
no, this is exactly what Wisconsin did to Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. It's the only time that Michigan State got the numbers they wanted and lost all season. And you can see that part of the reason for that is the Tom Izzo style. He's an old school basketball coach. And I remember in that second half, when we got around that 15-minute mark, I couldn't help but notice that even though they were down by double digits, Michigan State was getting late in the shot clock before they were actually trying to get their chance at the basket. And so the biggest stat for me team-wise is those turnovers. I mean, we have had some sloppy turnover games in this tournament. Todd Pettiford has had multiple turnovers, I think 3 games in a row. And then tonight, 0 turnovers for the all-star freshman, only 6 as a team. I mean, when you've got a team that's willing to burn clock for you, that is how you win a basketball game.
Did we say your largest run 17-0? Did we go on a 17-0 run?
That was that kill shot, baby.
Absolutely insane. I mean, I'm just looking at the stats, and we didn't really win very many stats, did we? Like, we shot better than they only shot 34%. So that's to our 43%. That's our defense locking them down. We had a lot of late shot clock Michigan State bad shots that didn't go in. I mean, a lot of their 3-point shoot shots were completely guarded, so that's part of the deal. I mean, they hit one in our face 3 early in the game that really, I think it was our first points that really upset me. There was also one where we left them wide open off like a 5-second shot clock out of bounds play, which is frustrating. But
yeah, that was brutal. But
it's just the lockdown defense. That's what it comes down to. We have not been that great on offense the last couple of games, and we've just decided that we're finally going to play that lockdown defense that helps combine when you have this many dudes that someone's going to go off. Todd Pettiford went off last game. Denver Jones went off last game. Not so much this game. They got in the foul trouble early. Miles Kelly got 3 early. Denver Jones got 3 early.
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about the foul trouble that our guards got into. Listen, we got 9 minutes out of Chris Moore tonight in an Elite 8 game. First of all, that is an insane sentence. Auburn does not need to be playing a Chris Moore
the Swiss Army
for a chance to go to the Final Four. NIL on to victory. Please get your weight up. and bring us some
Swiss Army
guys.
knife. Swiss
Yeah.
Army knife, Chris Moore.
But look, Chris Moore, he had an assist, he had a rebound. He didn't blow any crazy defensive assignments. I mean, it is such a big deal to be able to bring in a senior like that and just hold serve. I mean, that's the whole reason you want a lead is so that you can bring a guy in like that and not lose what your starters have built. And
We got
I can't wait for the cupboard to be stocked a little bit more for Bruce Pearl, especially with some NBA talent.
more than this. I don't know, man. I'm not holding my breath for anything after this season because this is all timer, man. When you have the National Player of the Year at center and so many dudes that can hit threes from everywhere else. AU Bears in the chat, Mr. Beautiful's in the chat. 32 wins, Mr. Beautiful says, the most ever in Auburn history. Don't hold your breath to see that one again anytime soon. Enjoy every moment of this golden age of Auburn basketball.
Absolutely.
AUN 2K is in here, says, so proud of the team in this season. Unreal. Love your podcast. Thanks for doing it. Obviously, Broom MVP, but I think the entire team was special. Yes, sir. It takes the entire team effort. Sensei Mud, I could cry right now. So proud of the boys. Keep the lead while Janai was out. Oh my God. Like, I was losing it. Me and Matt and the text were both losing it. I said, why can't we just have something as Auburn fans? Why is there always got to be something when we're good? Why is there always an issue? Why is there like NCAA stuff? Why is Chuma got to go down tearing his ACL late in the Sweet 16? Why can't we just have something? Why does it have to be dramatic? Why does it have to be? Why do we have to be such underdogs in everything? Why can't we just have something nice? Why can't we just happen to have the best freaking team in the country against the number one hardest schedule and just not have injuries, not have any other stories outside the team, no plane flights. Let's just have a freaking normal season. Why is there always something? So when Janai Broom went out,
Never.
that's what we were talking about. It's like, why can't,
Never.
like, sure, maybe we'll still make the Final Four, but why? Why does it have to happen like that? And he comes roaring back. We feel a lot better now, but it's always something with Auburn, right?
Truly. I mean, this is what it is to be an Auburn fan. You know, Matt talked about this in the first IBOB in Tuscaloosa, and it happened again tonight. State Farm Arena started chanting, "It's great to be an Auburn Tiger," way too early. You got to save that stuff because you don't have to be an Auburn fan for longer than 5 minutes to understand how snake bit we are as a fan base.
I got to look up what our three percentage is in March Madness because it can't be good,
No,
right?
it's pretty bad over the last 10 games.
How do I even look that up right
I
now?
think
All I know is
someone had posted on X. We'll try to find it later. But you know, it's not really relevant right now. Michigan State was one of the best 3-point defending teams, and we knew that coming in. And we haven't been a great 3-point shooting team, so it was nice to see us not fall in love with the 3-point shot. Uh, you know, Miles Kelly's going to take 5 or 6 a game. He's a great shooter, and the rims have just been so unkind to him lately. He's due for a big one. Chad Baker Mazzara, I thought all of his were in rhythm. 2 for 8, you kind of hate,
no,
but like
not you.
that's
You really giving Chad Baker for that? Well, that's what we'll talk about. You're giving Chad Baker Mazzara so much credit. I did not like his game today. He took a lot of like contested threes early in shot clocks. Even the announcers were
what
calling
are
out
you
like
talking
bad
about?
shots.
What game were you watching? No way.
CBM took some bad shots today.
He
Then on
took
top of it,
two.
late in the game, he had this really bad one where they turned the ball over. Great, amazing. And he just put head down, head full of steam. All we need to do is run clock for 30
No,
seconds.
he was
Go out
fouled
there and
on that.
just shoot
He
the
was fouled on
worst
that.
2 point. Maybe he was fouled, but we should have just pulled back when it wasn't over. It was 2-on-1 against him. He was the one, and he still went for it. He did, and then down the stretch when we needed to just hold on to the ball and hit some free
Uh,
throws. Every single time he touched the ball, he was
Chad,
throwing Hail Mary.
Chad, I'm trying to
Crazy.
let you out of I'm trying to let you out of the doghouse, but Jackson broke the embargo. He paid the tariff, so he's going to come in here and he's going to talk trash about Chad Baker Mazara.
Two of
Listen,
10 from the field, 2 of 8 from three. Like I know he got 5 assists, but like I was pretty disappointed with this game. Like we needed him to step up, especially when Janai Broom went out. We need somebody, and then when the guards were in foul trouble with 3 fouls each, and we had taken them out. It was Chris Moore, Pettiford, CBM, and the two bigs in there. I was really begging, like someone's got to do something here. Someone CBM needs to step because he's done that all year. He's stepped up big time, and he hasn't stepped up in March, really, has he?
strong disagree. He fed Cheney when Janai went out, and that made a big difference of getting Cheney the ball where he needed to be, where he was close to the basket. Uh, what do you see in that turnover column next to Chad Baker Mazara's name, Jackson?
He threw some bad turn. It might
Zero.
as well have been a turnover when he
Zero.
took the fast break. He just
Zero.
threw the ball against the backboard.
No, they were call they're calling it a block, and it was a foul. He should have gone to the line.
Let's see.
Again, the
I
fact
got
that he
his
didn't get
stats
to the
pulled up
line
over
tonight is
here.
crazy. I cannot believe that as a team we shot 20 free throws and 13 of them were from our bigs.
Chad Baker Mazara, 5 points against ASU. Chad Baker Mazara, he has 17 against Creighton. Okay, okay. I thought didn't have a single game in this tournament with double digits yet. He had 6 against Michigan, and then tonight he had how many? 6 again. He's
Look,
not
there's no
been
doubt.
great. Thank God
There's
Creighton he did
there's
something.
no doubt. There's no doubt he's been quieter, and a lot of that has to do with he's playing a lot of bigger wings where he's giving up size, and the NCAA tournament is being officiated differently. The whistles are weird in March. I don't know how else to describe it. Guys get like Dylan is getting officiated beautifully. They're actually giving Dylan his cylinder, which is making a huge difference. And I think Chad is not able to draw fouls as regularly. And, like you saw tonight, and it was the same thing against Michigan. We ran that offense through Janai Broome, and that was where we had the advantage. And so Chad has become kind of the last second wing guy rotating over. That's sort of what our three does. They're lingering away from the basket because we're not using him to screen and wall off guys inside. We're using Cardwell for that. So he's lingering on that outside wing, and you can bet teams are not losing track of where Miles Kelly is when the ball is inside in the paint. But they're losing track of where Chad Baker Mazara is sometimes. And when he's open like that, he's got to take those shots.
I'm cool when he's taking open shots. He took some really bad not open shots. The announcers were even talking about it. We shot 31% from three against ASU, 36 against Creighton, and made a big difference. It felt like that game was completely different. 28% against Michigan, and tonight we shot 28% again. Our three-point shooting has not been great down the stretch. Thank God at least we got that Creighton game in to kind of shake off some cobwebs there. But we're going to need some three-point shooting against the next two teams to win, hopefully higher than 30%. Who else do you want to talk about on this schedule here? Or who else do you want to talk about? Miles Kelly, maybe?
No, let's
This
talk
could be
about
another
Tahad
three foul
Pettiford.
game.
Let's talk about Tahad Pettiford because late in this game, his handles were just so elite, and his athleticism
Two
in
games
getting
in a
out of
row.
traps, splitting double teams. Yeah, and against our best competition when the lights are the brightest, Tahad is just making a difference for us.
He's doing some special stuff out there. He's getting a lot of love nationally for it too. I heard the CBS, not CBS guys, yeah, CBS podcast, the national one, talking about if he can make the lottery or not. He's that good. I mean, he's 6 foot, so it's the NBA is going to be an issue. Hopefully, they were saying 1.5 million to 2 million. He might get NIL next year. We got to step it up to get that. We love the Neville's for getting the name on the arena, but we might need some more money to get this guy back or somebody else. Charles Bar, I don't know, somebody. I know they all give tons of money already, but man, his handles have been amazing this tournament, right? There was this amazing move against Michigan where he just split. He kind of did this like I don't know what they call it, where he just kind of stop and went, and the guy just got left behind for a score there. Something out of street ball, it felt like. And he did again tonight to split the screens a couple times at the top of the key there. So I don't know. The stat line isn't like some huge thing to talk about. 10 points, 3 assists. Did he get another block tonight? There was a huge
Yes, he
block
did.
against a seven
Yes,
footer
he
last
did.
game, and another big block tonight. So it's hard to tell from the stat sheet how big of a game he is, but he's just looking different out there. And I've talked about for a while that we need a guy, every college basketball team that makes a deep run. Even if you have a great guy named like Janai Broome, even if you have some great shooters like Miles Kelly and Dimmer Jones, you need a guy that's special, that's just more athletic than anybody else on the other team. You need one of those like NBA draft stock kind of guys that can just go out there and do something that no one else can do. And that's Todd Pettiford for us this year. I don't know for sure what his NBA stuff is, but from a point guard perspective, the way he shoots, the way he moves out there is just different than anybody else. And when he turns it on, no one else is going to stop him.
No, and he has got a lot of money that could be coming his way because I'm pretty sure we're paying that guy number 4 quite a bit, and he's going to be off the payroll no matter what happens at the end of this season. Jackson, are we ready to move on and talk Florida? I know it's getting late over
We
there.
haven't talked to Miles Kelly yet. He's the only one I really want to talk about
Yeah, let's
last.
talk about Miles.
It's not
Miles
a
was
huge.
so much better today getting around screens. I thought that's been his biggest weakness in this tournament is people have been able to screen him out of our defensive action, and it's led to more of those ticky-tack fouls. And this time, he wasn't getting his fouls in the half-court action. He was getting them in the full-court action, which was a little frustrating.
Miles Kelly, 23 points against ASU, 5 against Creighton, 5 Michigan, and then tonight he had 8. He's not shooting great from three after that first barrage against Alabama State and Lexington because he owns Lexington. Honestly, he should have went play for Kentucky because he would have tore it up in Lexington. But since then, it's been a little disappointing from three. He even had this really, man, we had some great passing threes tonight where the unselfish play was really standing out several times tonight. And one in particular, I believe it was a offensive rebound from somebody that finally worked over to a wide open mouth. Like you could count the Mississippi's, 5 Mississippi by the time he took that shot. I thought for sure I would have put my life savings that would have went down. And it just didn't go down. So it's just something to watch, Miles Kelly. The foul issue, he's had that a couple times this year where he's had too many fouls, but everyone does to a certain extent. What I'm really watching is hoping he hit a couple early threes against our next opponent. We're gonna need them. We're gonna need our sharpshooters to hit those in the future.
Yeah, but that ball movement is so important because, like you said, it rotates to where guys can hit them in rhythm. We did that with Pettiford in the corner for one of his big threes that moved the lead back from 8 to 11. And like you said, we didn't hit a ton of threes tonight, but when we hit them, it felt like it really mattered. And it was one of those like, oh man, if we get this three right now, the game has changed because you go from instead of being down 8 and they're going to get to come down and possibly get it to a 2 possession game, you're back up 11 and they're still chasing and they still can't get comfortable and you can still work clock. And it just makes such a huge difference in those moments when you can hit those big shots and just keep them a little further away. It's why the mat system works so well. You get to that 4 minute TV timeout, you're up double digits. It's such a steep hill to climb. And you saw Michigan State played their best basketball in the last 90 seconds. And the only reason they were not able to make that comeback was because of how far ahead we were. And that is why it means so much to get to that under 2 minute timeout and be ahead by at least 3 possessions.
Really curious to know, and this is moving the page a little bit now and finally talking about like bigger picture post game kind of thing. I'm really interested to know who Vegas's favorite is going to be for the national championship. I don't care about gambling, but I just want to know perspective why it feels like even though we are the overall number 1 seed, even though we've had a historic season, there's just all these people riding for the season because or before the tournament because we lost a couple games down the stretch that other teams are going to upset us. The Florida is just so hot right now. Duke, they barely lost any games this year. They've got Cooper Flag. They haven't lost any games in a while. Houston, like you said, has only lost 2 games all year, including one to us and one in overtime. So I'm
Incorrect. They've
curious to
lost four
hear.
games. They've only lost one in overtime, and the or one in regulation. The other three were in overtime.
Oh, they lost three in overtime. Okay. I thought they'd lost only 2 games all year. Who we got here? Final
All right, we're
four
gonna
odds.
see. Yeah, we're gonna pull it up so we can look at it. Florida is open as a 2.5 point favorite.
They're the fate.
So
Wow. They've been
that's
on fire, man. They've been
well,
on
no,
fire.
they're a 2.5 point favorite over us.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right, yeah, the line for Duke at Houston is 4.5. That's crazy.
I just don't
Wow,
know if I believe Houston's a Death Star out there right now.
they're
Like
so
Duke has
long. They're
proven me
so
wrong a little
rangy.
bit.
Yeah,
In my head, I was hoping that Duke played an easy schedule in the ACC. The ACC's been terrible this year. They've not played well in the tournament, I don't believe either. And that Duke would kind of like get exposed a little bit against these tough teams. And they've had, they're a number 1 seed. So they've not played so many great teams. They dominated Alabama. So I think that's changed the narrative a little bit. But we're the least favorite in the Final Four. It looks like, right? It was
yep. It was
Florida, Duke,
us.
Houston, and
It was
us.
us, Houston, Florida, and Duke. Yeah, in reverse order. So
Yeah, so that's how it's felt. It's felt like people are doubting us. That even though as the number 1 overall seed after this historic season, that they're still doubting us. So I think Bruce even brought up before the game, like, are we underdogs or not? And the Michigan State, Tom Izzo has been to so many Final Fours and all this stuff. Like people don't get it. I mean, like I guess like people like bias wise in the back of their heads get it, but like we've never been here before like this. Like we are the underdogs. Like no one believes in us. Florida's so hot. Like we got to go out there and prove it. We always have to prove it. And I want to say like we made the Final Four in this historic season. Like it is etched now. Putting the banners up. We've now got 2 Final Fours in the Bruce Pearl era. We're setting this like foundation stone by stone of what Auburn basketball is. And we can now say like in 10, 20, 30 years, like, yeah, we Auburn basketball is legit. We went to 2 Final Fours in those years in the 2019 and 2025. Like we do stuff in basketball, but there's still so many doubters out there that we really deserve to be here. So it feels like even though this kind of like takes the pressure off, I think we all didn't want to like admit it. I know you guys on the pod were definitely not wanting to admit that it would take a Final Four to satisfy Auburn fans. I think now that we're at Final Four, we can kind of breathe a little bit. But even then, I think we're still got this little bit of like, we're going to have to freaking win the whole thing to get the respect that we deserve this year.
even then, they're still going to call it a flash in a pan. But I think getting to this Final Four in this tournament with how good the SEC was, and especially now that we know Broome got a little bit beat up, nothing will take away how meaningful the season was. Matt and I talked about it on last night's pod that the Final Four is weird. It's not like any other thing in sports. Just making it to the Final Four solidifies you as a coach, as a program, as players. It's almost more meaningful than the national championship because everybody knows winning a national championship in college basketball is such a crapshoot. And we talked about some of the great teams over the years that just weren't great on one night and the one night that it quote unquote matters for everybody else. So I'm so thrilled that nobody can take away what this team has done. And further, even the casual folks understand it's like, oh yeah, that Auburn team went to the Final Four. That's all you have to
Gone
say.
to the Final Four. So sadly, Alabama went to the Final Four last year. Did Tennessee go to the Final Four yet? Did they go last year too?
116 years of Tennessee basketball, zero Final Fours.
And we've gone twice. It's been us twice in Alabama that's been in the Final Four in the last couple like 10 years, right?
I think Kentucky won their national championship, and then I can't remember if LSU went after that. And I know the Gators have been to six
Help
Final
us
Fours.
help us out in the chat. Like, I don't think there's been many SEC teams in the Final Four. Now Florida's done it along with us this year, but it felt like not to bring up Alabama on our own podcast over here, but like it felt like they held serve there by making theirs last year. So it feels really good to take one over. It feels like even in the SEC that we finally went back over again to be like, yeah, we have been the dominant program over the last what 10 years under Bruce Pro, the last 7, 6 years for sure. So it's just good to finally solidify that again. And I still talk about that South Carolina Final Four from like 10 years ago with Frank Martin. I don't even know if it was 10 years ago, but like some teams do sneak in there and it can be a flash in the pan. NC State last year going on that Cinderella run with that big old guy that they had. So the fact that we could get back to a second one is huge to kind of put that. This was not a one-time run with Bryce Brown and Jared Harper and all those Chumo Kiki, all those guys. Big shout out that we've interviewed a bunch of them on the podcast, so go back and check that out. But it's just good to finally put that stone down that we are consistent. We were supposed to be a top 25 program. Now we're a consistent Final Four program, in my opinion. So go in and win a ring, go in and win the national championship, win a game in the Final Four, and we'd really, another pillar of our basketball gets set.
Jackson, I'm looking at Final Four tickets, and there's some that are available for less than $300, man. I might have to check out some flights here.
These days in this economy, it's only 300. Okay.
It's not bad. That
I
is
think
not
that's about
bad.
what I paid for my Final Four ticket in 2019, but that was a different economy back then. That was about
Yes.
half the price, or
Yes, it
double the price
was.
when it comes to inflation.
Oh
Good
man.
to be in San Antonio too. Like I know it's also not the biggest town in the world. This is a good time for me to talk about my Final Four adventure from last time.
Please tell the
Had a
fans, and I'm
great
begging
time, but I
you.
went all by myself. I bought my tickets that night, assuming that people would go, that people would like. It's like the national share, like it's huge. It's like a historic thing for me to go. No one I knew went. Not a single soul. I reached out to so many people, being like, surely, one of my other super Auburn fans is going to go. I was the only friend I could find that was going. The podcast didn't exist at the time, even though it should have by then. Glad it exists now to celebrate another one of these. But bought my ticket. Minneapolis was way too small. Minneapolis is not a town that can handle the size of Final Four. They didn't have enough hotels, not enough Airbnbs. I had to stay in this Airbnb in a private room with three other people, like in the house with us from other fan bases. It was really interesting. I can't remember the guy I hung out with. I found a guy online that was an Auburn fan that was also by himself. Hung out with him. I did Tiger Walk. We just got drunk at the bar at the hotel where Tiger Walk was beforehand and didn't line up to Tiger Walk in time. So by the time we were lining up for Tiger Walk, we were like right in front of the team. So we got to walk through Tiger Walk and give all the high fives, watch the guys get on the bus. Man, went down there. The vibes are amazing. When you have four fan bases like that, they're that excited about their teams to play back to back the night. The celebrities are there. I high fived Patrick Mahomes when he was there at Texas Tech. I was down there near the floor at one point. And my tickets were the absolute nosebleeds of the stadium. You couldn't hardly see anything up there. So my advice is if you get Final Four tickets and you sit at the very top of these football arenas, bring some binoculars. I'm not even kidding. Because you'll think, oh, I'll watch the video screens. You can't. They turn the video screens off during the game. The big one, at least. Like, they have these huge jumbotrons in these football stadiums. They
Oh
turn them
yeah.
off and they just put the logo there because they don't want the players to get distracted by the humongous screen up there. So they're the little bitty screens for like people in a basketball arena at the bottom part. But if you're in the football arena and you're in the upper deck, you can't see anything. It's still very fun. It's still worth it to say you went to the Final Four. That's the absolute bucket list. I've been to national championship in another sport we don't talk about on this podcast twice. I've been to the Final Four in basketball. I've been to the Stanley Cup. I need to go to the World Series. I need to go to the NBA Finals. But bucket list sports moments. Would love to go to the World Cup in 2026. Go to it, man. It's an experience. Get your tickets now. Get your hotel now before they start selling out with all these other teams. We're actually very unlucky to be the last one already because everybody else from these other fan bases have already bought up their stuff. But don't miss it. Don't miss another one. You don't know when this is going to happen again. After 2019, when we went to the Final Four and we lost in that double dribble, we deserved to win the national championship that year. I feel like we were so hot. Everyone said, "Oh, we'll be back. We'll be back next year. Back next year. Back the next year. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And we're finally back. We're finally back in 2025. But it took 6 years. So much happened in the world since then. So much happened in my personal life. Take yourself back to 2019 and how much has changed in your life. How much has changed politically. How much changed we had a whole freaking COVID pandemic. They canceled a March Madness. Like, come on, guys. Like, you got to take these shots where you can. Get out there and go to the Final Four.
Jackson, what more can you say than that, man? You got me fired up and ready to book these tickets right now. It's what an incredible experience. What a time to be alive. This podcast and doing this with you guys has been so fun. It started with that magical year in 2022 that didn't finish the way we wanted it to. How good does it feel that this team has reached the heights that we all dreamed of for them?
I think we've communicated it on the podcast already. At least we were really lucky to get Matt. That was a huge get. And it was really funny for
Yeah.
me. That game was super late at night for me. I couldn't watch it. I had to watch the highlights later, which is insane that there's no way for anyone to watch a replay of a huge March Madness game if you happen to miss it live. It's insane that there's no possible way unless you recorded it on like YouTube Live or on your DVR or something. There's no way on your phone or on your computer that you can have rewatched it. I got to watch highlights, a long condensed highlight situation, but glad to hear Matt. It was like a personal voicemail for my friends describing what happened at the game last night. It was really fun. But I think the plan is if we win, which we should, guys. I'm cheering we win. We'll be back on the podcast again late, whatever time. We'll be back on the podcast to talk Florida. If we lose, we'll probably wait a little bit and do a big recap situation so we can all be on the podcast together. So just
And
ahead.
listen, Matt joked a lot about he was going to cash in the goodwill that he's built up from stepping away from the podcast a little bit to go to San Antonio. And if Matt and I go to San Antonio, you better believe we are going to cut you folks some content from that town.
If you guys make it, I'm gonna have to send some beer money or something to see you guys live at the Final Four. I'll be so upset that I'm missing seeing the gang at the Final Four. That will be insane. If you
That would be
guys want to
the
see
that would be
these
such
guys,
a
let them know. Let them know if
culmination.
you got any tickets or anything cheap or any other place for them to stay. Especially Ben. I have a feeling if you offer Ben some tickets or a place to stay, he would take you up on it in a second.
Hey, listen, I'll crash on anybody's couch for sure. I think I can afford the tickets myself. They don't look like they're crazy right now because we're in that chalk madness area. So we'll see. I'm gonna do some number crunching, and I'll let you folks know if we're gonna have some live content from San Antonio in the Final Four.
Anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk? I guess you're trying. Hopefully, we're going to talk about the matchup with Florida podcast. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
we got some a couple things. We got to find out what's going on with Broom. Did he just sprain the elbow, or did he actually have a hyperextension? And we're gonna have to figure it out. And that's the biggest storyline going into it. We'll try to get you a slightly better scout for Florida, but Florida's none of those teams. They've only lost like 3 or 4 games this whole year, so we don't know what the recipe is. Maybe the guys over on the Florida Basketball Hour can help us out. But that pod will be coming out midweek, so just keep in tune for when that's going to drop in your podcast feed.
Yeah, it's going to be tough with Broom. We've seen it all year. We don't really know. There's a couple guys on this team like this. CBM's like this. Cardwell likes to lay on the ground too. Broom can be over dramatic with the injuries too. We have no idea what he's dealing with. The sad part is no matter what, he doesn't go down like that without having some sort of little limp or having something nagging going to the Final Four, which sucks. It feels like we just got him fully healthy. Early this game, last game, he felt like the Broom, like peak Broom form. So it just sucks that it happened again. Feels like it's just a thing that's going to happen with him because he plays so hard. Just the way his body is. I don't know, but we'll be on the lookout for sure. I doubt anything comes out. I think like they'll just keep it mum and then everybody will know that he's going to play, but we're not sure if he's 100% or 90% or 80% or whatever. But an 80% Broom's still better than most players. But when you're
Oh
playing
yeah.
number one seeds, a team like Florida that's like felt like the only team that really got us this year at our peak form. It's going to be really tough. They're so hot right now. I mean, there's nobody we could possibly play in this game that wasn't going to be a great team. So it is what it is. You have to go through the great teams. We've already gone through so many other great teams. It's just one more up.
Next one up, win or go home. Jackson, we're hanging another banner. We cut down some more nets. There's only one question left to ask at 3 a.m. European time. Jackson, are you having fun?
The most fun possible. You can't have more fun than cutting down the nets to the final four, man. And I want to
We
shout
did
out to
it.
everybody in the freaking chat too. It's been a lot of these same guys all year long. We have ridden together through this. I'm so glad that some people come in the chat and Jay Lowry, Mr. Beautiful, Sensei Mud, AUN 2K, Chris Thomas, AU Bear, Sony Chu. I don't know if I've seen that one before. Thanks for coming, War Eagle, Flex Machine, like all these people in the chat. Thank you guys for coming. Like it's been really fun to watch the games with you guys this season and chat with you guys. You always bring such amazing opinions. Hopefully, we'll see you for two more chats and then it's a post season stuff later on. So, Ben, one last question for the final four Auburn Tigers, number one Auburn basketball podcast. Are you having fun?
I'm having so much fun. War damn Eagle.
Or damn Eagle.
Oh, we did it, man. We did it. We did it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
We didn't have a pod last time the Final Four came around, so I'm glad we could finally document this, that we
I'm
can
just
have
glad the
this for
boys at the Jungle
posterity.
Podcast could watch their favorite team pull it out.
One day they'll be like I'm just now thinking about this. One day there will be like an archive of podcasts. Like you know how you can like look back on like
Yeah.
newspapers and be like, oh yeah, here's the front page of the newspaper when Auburn won the other national in 1957 or whatever. You're like, oh, I put it up on my wall, whatever. Like it's gonna be crazy for kids to grow up and then be like, what was it like? What was it like that year they won that? I bet that was pretty cool. What was it like in 1999 for Auburn basketball with the Flying Tigers? Let me come back to this. There's this podcast. Like I can go back and find the reaction to that. What was it like in that moment? I hope that's how it is. And
And
like
they're gonna
go
skip through all
back.
because they're gonna be like, oh, this podcast, they're still talking about what they had for breakfast. And this podcast won't stop talking about the F word. Where's the basketball oh, here's the basketball podcast.
I hope they find us. I hope we're the number one when they find us. They can search in the feed. I mean, I listen to old podcasts now. I'll just like when I'm traveling or something, I'll type stuff in and end up listening to a podcast from like 2016. That's almost 10
Oh,
years now.
well, hey,
So
listen,
like,
you remember you said like, oh yeah, we get some downloads in Saudi Arabia. Like when I was down, when I was overseas, I was like, let me go back and listen to our SEC championship podcast so I can feel good about something again.
see that
Uh,
gang? Everybody, go back and listen to old podcasts when you're a little down. You want to hang out with your buddies. Yeah.
exactly. And when you want to remember the good times, and boy, you got to know the good days when you're in them, and we are freaking in them, man.
All right. I better go to bed. It's
Yeah,
late.
dude. I don't know how you're gonna sleep with all this energy, but